Okay, Shalom Aleichem. Long time to speak. We're going to try to go through some points today of Siman Reish Ayin Aleph. Obviously, can't talk about everything in entire Siman, but we'll try to talk about some key points over here. Okay, so the tour in the beginning of Reish Ayin Aleph says, "Kashiyavah lebeso yemahir lechol miyad." You should hurry up to eat immediately. The Tanya is Zachoros Yom Shabbos HaKadshoy, Zachreya Alayayin B'Knisaso. So then the Beis Yosef brings down for the Lashon Rashi and the Rashbam that it says the Kadsho, remember the Yom Shabbos, the Kadsho is Manshin is Kaddish Hayom, which would be in the very beginning of the day. So the mitzvah's Kiddush is to be immediately to be Kaddish as soon as possible when the day comes in. So it's interesting that the Lashon Torah is not Kaddish Miyad, Ela Yochal Miyad. And Lashon Shulchan Aruch also doesn't mention the Kiddush, it just says Kashiyavah lebeso yemahir lechol miyad. The drush of the Gemara and the diuk from Rashi is talking about Kiddush, not about the Achila. It's about the Kiddush miyad. So we have to say what we say over here is that the Chor you have to say is that we're talking over here about the it is talking about Kiddush, but Lechol, since there's a din of Kiddush Makam Suda, so that entails somebody's trying to get in. Joe, you're in, but you're not in. Okay, you're in. Oh, someone's in twice. Okay.
Sorry about it.
Yeah, no problem. I saw like I thought you're here, and then you're trying to get in. Yeah, so that since we have a Kiddush Makam Suda, and as we spoke in the past, that the Suda in a way is part of the Kiddush. We'll talk more about that as we go along. So the Lashon Torah in the Shulchan Aruch is Lechol Miyad, even though the drasha is by Kiddush. That's how much Kiddush and the Suda are part and parcel with each other. Now, the Beis Yosef and the Bach talk over here that you can be Mekadosh even Miba'od Yom. Like the Gemara says in Brachos that Rav was Mispalo Adam Shel Shabbos, Erev Shabbos, Amar Kiddush Alakois. So here's someone else coming in. You can daven an Erev Shabbos and make Kiddush Alakois. You can second. Oh, Derek is in. Okay. So so this din of Kaddish Miyad immediately to be Kaddish as soon as the Zman comes in applies even. There's a question whether it applies even to Ba'od Yom. The Pashas we're going to say that the Taz says that it's referring even to Ba'od Yom. The earliest time you can make Kiddush, you should make Kiddush. So this din of Miyad applies even Kodem Shabbos. But the Magen Avraham and the Mishnah Berurah disagree, and they say that that this din of Kaddish Miyad is only referring to Bizman that it's already Chal the Chiyuv of Kiddush. So then once it's Chal the Chiyuv of Kiddush, then it's implicit in the drasha of Zachoros Yom Shabbos Lakadshay Bizman Shin is Kaddish Yom. As soon as the Kiddush Yom comes, then you should Kaddish yourself on the coast. So then that applies only to Bizman Chiyuv Kiddush, not Bizman that you could be Mekadosh when it's be Ba'od Yom from Plag and Mincha. So we don't agree with that Taz. However, there's a famous question that the Rambam, who also brings down this din, and also can Mekadosh be Ba'od Yom. The question is, what exactly is happening when you're Mekadosh Ba'od Yom? Is it pshat that's Kabbalah Shabbos, like you're Mekabel Shabbos early, and there's a din to Sefer Shabbos Bizman Kiddush? You could say that, and that's why the Kiddush works, because you could say like Babas Achas, it's sort of like, Yada Begita, Ke'echad, Babas Achas, that Bizman that you're Mekadosh, then it's Chal, the Kiddush Shabbos, and the Mela comes out that you were Memela, Mekadosh, Bizman, that it's Shabbos. The problem is that the Rambam, Kesef Mishnah says in the Rambam that there is no din to Sefer Shabbos. Maybe like the very last moments because of Suffolk, but the whole din of Yibim Mosif, Chol al Kodesh, to add to Sefer Shabbos, and it's Chal Shabbos early, however you learn shot in that earlier Shabbos. But that the Rambam doesn't hold that entire din. So what's shot in the Rambam, you can Mekadosh early when it's clearly Miba'od Yom, and you're not adding you're not making it into Tosefes Shabbos because there is no Tosefes Shabbos. So the answer, what's well known in the Rambam, is that Lashon Rambam Perach Chavtes Halacha Yud Aleph. He says Yesh lo Adam lakadosh alakos erev Shabbos mi'od yom. He says explicitly you can do it erev Shabbos while it's still day. Even though it's not Shabbos. So the Rambam is not bothered by that. He's not trying to come to say a teretz that it's Chal Shabbos through the Kiddush. He says, Shabbos, it's still a mitzvah in Mekadesh. Why? You could also do that as well, Havdalah, which we won't go into that right now. Says the Rambam, the mitzvah of Schira, it says by to be zocher, it's a Shabbos like a Kiddush, is b'shas knisasa while it's coming in or going out, bein kodem l'shazu ma'at, or to be mekadosh before Shabbos a little bit. So the Shittas Rambam is saying clearly that Kiddush is not totally in it being Shabbos, it's being close to Shabbos. So Pshat according to Rambam and Kiddush, the Schira Shabbos is not this, the din Shmira Shabbos obviously on Shabbos itself. The din of the Schira Shabbos, Schoros Yom Shabbos L'Kadshay, that applies even before Shabbos Mat. In other words, you have to be machnis the Shabbos Ayadei Kiddush. So when you're Malava the king, come in, it's like we had the sugyas earlier in our been talking about the Livui Amelech. We talked about the Malava the king on the way in and the way out. So the Rambam is learning that you're Malava the king, you want Malava the Shabbos on the way in. You don't, if the king comes, you don't wait till the king is already there to Mechaber the king, to remember the king. You send out your messengers to Malava the king into the city. So you're Mechaber the king way before he gets into the city to do that livui. So you're Malava the Shabbos in Kodem Shabbos Ma'at, not Dafka on Shabbos, and you're kind with that Mrs. Kiddush. That answers a lot of questions, but that's what the Rambam says with his lashon. Okay, we're going on. Yeah. And the Magen Avraham here says in this halacha that something just happened. Okay. Everybody still hear me?
Can hear you.
Something just happened. Okay, something just went out. Maybe it's, I think it says bandwidth is low. Okay, something. All right. Okay, so the Magen Avraham says over here that since, according to the Rambam, Kiddush al Yain is Derbanan, like Tosas, like we saw in the Halokas and the Sugya, and that's the way the Magen Avraham holds. That's the way we paskin. The Kiddush al Yain is Derbanan. Even though Rukega brings down that the Shittas Aran and the Rashba is it's a raya from, he brings a raya from the Ran and the Rashba, the Sugi of Ner Chanukah and Shabbos Chaf Aleph, that they ask a question over there. How can you say that? How can you say that Ner Chanukah the Kiddush Hayom Ner Chanukah Adif because of Brisim Nisa if Kiddush al Yain is Deraisa? Kiddush Yom is Deraisa on Yain. So how could one be Docha the other? How could we go Docha Deraisa? So they say Terutzim, from that Kasha, you see that the Ran and the Rashba hold that Kiddush al Yain is Deraisa. And as we spoke in the past, according to Shittas Rashi and others, also it's Deraisa. But Tosas holds it's Derbanan, Tosas and Rush. And that's the way that the Magen Avraham paskins. So the Magen Avraham holds that since the Al Yain is only Derbanan and the Iker Deraisa is just the Schira Shabbos even without Yain, that's the Mitzvah Deraisa. So it's a famous Magen Avraham that holds that your Yotzei Kiddush Ayadei Tefillah in Shul. When you mention Shabbos and you say Kaddish Shabbos in davening in Shul, then you're already getting the Mitzvah of Kiddush Midaraisa. We'll see there's some big nafkaminas in that. Like Lamashal, if you could be Yotzei Ayadei Katan, or can you be Yotzei Ayadei a bar mitzvah that wasn't maybe Shtei Saras, or you don't know if he was maybe Shtei Saras. Can you be Samach on the Chazaka de Rava? When we say the klal is that we only Samach on Chazaka de Rava, that a bar mitzvah was Hevi Shtei Saras, is really a gadol by the Rabbanans, by the Raisas, we're not Samach on that. So if the Kiddush you're making is, or you're coming to hear Kiddush from bar mitzvah boy, if according to Magen Avraham, it depends. If you davened already, then it's only Rabbanan. It could be Yotzei, someone can Chalak and Rava. If you didn't daven yet, or for women who didn't daven yet, then we can't be Samach on that because it's still Deraisa. So the Achronim, the Bir Halacha, speaks by Richas over here, many kashas on this Magen Avraham. How could it be that you're Yotzei Kiddush Ayidei Tefillah? First of all, we paskin in Simon Samach that mitzvah is kavana. That's the halacha, mitzvah is kavana. So how often do you have kavana when you daven Friday night to be Yotzei mitzvah's Kiddush? You're davening because you're davening. And number two, so how can you be Yotzei with that? What's the shot in the Magen Avraham? Number two, how can you be Yotzei with Ayidei, the Haskara Shabbos in davening, if we say in Kiddush, Zecher L'Tzias Mitzrayim, and the poskim say that that's the Ikuva. You have to mention that you're doing Kiddush Zecher L'Tzias Mitzrayim, and there is no mention of L'Tzias Mitzrayim in the davening Leil Shabbos. So these are kashas that on the Magen Avraham, because that's the Mishnah Berurah holds that one should really not be. It's very difficult to be samach on this Magen Avraham. But we'll see in a minute that there are cases where he is with Sarif, the Magen Avraham, as a kula. So he has kashas on it, but it's still there. It's not off the books. Rabbi Kiveger seems to go with the Magen Avraham. Rabbi Kiveger goes on a step further and says that since according to Magen Avraham, you would say Ayidei Schir Ba'alma, just the fact that you mentioned that it's Shabbos when you say Mekadosh or Shabbos. So according to that, just when you say good Shabbos to somebody, even if you didn't daven yet, or if the women said good Shabbos, you walk in the house, everybody says good Shabbos. So you mention that it's Shabbos, then you already Yotzei Kiddush according to that, Midaraisa. So then it also becomes a Rabbanan for the women as well once they say good Shabbos. So the terutzim that the Bir Halacha says in the Magen Avraham, the Mishnah Berurah says terutzim on the Magen Avraham in the Bir Halacha that perhaps when you say Yetzias Mitzrayim in at the end of Kriya Shema, and that's samach to the tefillah, so that counts having Yetzias Mitzrayim together with the Skira Shabbos. And since also they're misakin to say a lashon Mekadosh Shabbos, maybe that's considered like Kavanah to be Yotzei Kiddush also as well. So those terutzim that it says in the Magen Avraham would not be terutzim on Rabbi Kiveger's Kiddush. If the reason that it works part of the Magen Avraham, because the reason the Bir Halacha says, because of that smichas of Shema and everything like that, so then by just saying good Shabbos, all the kashas come back and there's no terutzim. So Rabbi Kiveger is a tremendous Kiddush. There's another Kiddush in Rabbi Kiveger is that the Achronim ask is that the Bir Halacha I think mentions this as well, that the to be Yotzei Kiddush, Lashon Ramam has to be derech shevach v'kiddush. Has to be derech shevach v'kiddush. So how is there a shevach v'kiddush? I saying good Shabbos. We're saying like you say the whole bracha of Shabbos, bracha ta Hashem, mekadosh Shabbos, you're meshabeach Hashem, mekadosh Shabbos. That's derech shevach. But if you just say good Shabbos, what is there? So that's probably Shem and Nissim Karelitz. That's all that. Since every day of the week, when it's Monday, you don't say a good Monday or a good Tuesday. So, but you say a good Shabbos, so then that comes out to be your when you say a good Shabbos, different than the other days of the week. That's like a derech shevach. You should beach the fact that it's Shabbos. So that's how you're mitaretz that we're going to run. Perhaps it's called derech shevach. It's a dochak. It's a chiddush.
That wouldn't answer the first problem of the Bir Halacha, right?
Right. That wouldn't answer that. It has to be zecher Yetzias Mitzrayim. It's only answering that one question. So I'm not sure how to answer that. Other one's going to be Kiveger, unless Kiveger obviously has other terutzim on those kashas.
So you'd have to tell your wife, good Shabbos, Zecher L'Tzias Mitzrayim.
Yeah, don't try that. Okay. Moving on. So the Torah and Shulchan Aruch say that Sif Beis Noshem Chayavos B'Kiddush Afapi Shu Mitzvahs Asay Shazman Grama even though it's Shazman Grama, we say Nashim are Chayavos and Kiddush just like men. We should Iskash Zachar l'Shomer. It's very interesting. Shulchan Aruch doesn't usually go through drushas and akasha and teretz. It's very unusual for the Shulchan Aruch, even though it's you might ask akasha and it says Shulchan Grama. No, I'll tell you, there's a hekesh between Zachar and Shamar. V'hanei nashi ho b'isnu b'shmira, isnu b'schira. Since they are chayav in the Shmira Shabbos, they can't be Mechal Shabbos. So the Los Aseis of Shabbos, Mela, also Chayavos in the Aseis of Shabbos. Very interesting Shulchan Aruch to basically speak out the whole sugya. And therefore, it says Shulchan Aruch, Motzios es Anashim, Kol v'Chayos min haTorah kamoyim. Since women have the same chiyuv as men, Mela, they can be motzi them if need be. If necessary, then if a man needs a woman to be motzi her, let's say he's not feeling well, whatever, he doesn't know how to say it, his wife does, then she can be motzi him because the women have the same level of chiyuv as the men. Okay, so and again, this is from the hekesh. The Gemara says in Brachos Daf Chaf Amud Beis, it's a hekesh between schira and shmira. So the Shulchan Aruch says mosif that after that hekesh, there's shavia b'chiyuvayu, that they have the exact same level of chiyuv. Now, it's very interesting that even though they have the same chiyuv as men, and the Bir Halacha had, as we just mentioned, had kashas on the Magen Avraham Kiddush that you Yotze Ardiyah de Tefillah, but here, even though he had all these kashas, okay, he did say Terutzim, but he seemed like the kashas were stronger. But so close, we see that he does still hold it, because here the Gabe Noshim, the chiyuv of Noshim. So the Bir Halacha says that a woman could be Yotze Ardiyah Katan. She can't be Yotze Ardiyah Katan, but if she already davened, so then we can be samach if she needs a cotton to be it's a bar mitzvah, not a cotton, but a bar mitzvah that we're not sure if he had brought Shtei Saros. So that the Mishnah Berurah says that you can be samach on the Chiddush of the Magen Avraham as a maman of shach. Number one, maybe the halacha like in Magen Avraham, that maybe he brought Shtei Saros. Maybe he did. We're not sure. The chazaka of the Rava is that he brought Shtei Saros. We're not samach on that chazaka by a deraisa. But there is certainly a possibility. So that creates, says the Bir Halacha, creates a svek. Maybe he bought Shtei Saros. Even if he didn't bring Shtei Saros, then maybe she's Yotzei Ayidei Tefillah, like the Magen Avraham. So with Sirif, svek, he's mitzaref the Magen Avraham. So he's not really passing like it, but he is certainly mitzaref it. So it's on the book still, as we said. Yes.
Can we use a suffix that we can be mivarer? Like we could just check the kid if he has two saros.
Not always, like the kid comes in, instead of bar mitzvah, he comes into the old lady's house to make kiddush. She can say, just a minute.
Yeah, I'm saying not necessarily practical, but I mean, like,
yeah. So for some reason there seem to be other timing as well that maybe Havi, Venuflu, or there might be Saras, and we're not sure if those are really Saras or it's just a fuzz bomb. So it's not really such a thing. It's not so easy to mevar that. They knew how to then know for sure, but we don't really know that so much anymore. So they'd be budding for Shtei Saros. Also, they could be anywhere, pretty much on the goof. So it's a hard thing to be mevar. So anyway, it's just very interesting that even though the Bir Halacha had all this kashas on Magen Avraham, still Magen Avraham still serves as a tziruf to create a svek that we can rely on for a woman who needs someone to make kiddush. If all there is a bar mitzvah boy to do it, a new bar mitzvah boy, young boy, can still do that. Now the other eights as well, if you don't want to be samach on that, one that Mishnah Berurah says she could say mila b'mila together with him, and that would work even with a katan. Even if it's really a katan, but she says mila b'mila, obviously it's okay. He's just serving as a living sitter, and she's saying mila b'mila. But in that case, says the Mishnah Berurah, interesting thing that if she says it mila b'mila with him, then she should also be holding her own kos, because it's not considered that she's mekadosh ala kos if he's holding the kos and she's not. So she has to. If he says it, then it might be get a little sticky. He feels like he's been motzi her. So what does she need to hold a kos for? But if she has to think of a good terrace, that she's holding a kos as well. And the Mishnah brings another Eitzah as well. You could also say is that she could say together with him Mila even without a kos. She could say Mila Mila together with him by Yechulu, and have in mind to be Yotzei Kiddush by saying by Yechulu, because she's mentioning Shabbos over there, and it's going to be samach to the to the rest of the Kiddush. So she says by Yechulu, she's Yotzei Deraisa, and the rest of the Kiddush is Drabanan, and then she can be samach on him to be mostly her if he's a bar mitzvah. So another possibility. Okay, so moving on. Sif Gimel, Me'en Yarav Asegas, Liknos Yayin, L'Kiddush, Shalach, and Sarche Suda, L'Chavar Alayla, L'Chavar Hayom, L'Kiddush Hayom, Mutav Shiyikne Yayin, L'Kiddush Alayla, B'Mashi Yachin, Sarche Asuda, B'Mashi Yikne Yayin, L'Tzorach Hayom. So it's better to the primary thing to use your money for, if you can't afford it, is to have Kiddush for Friday night. It's better than having other Sorchi Asuda, and better than having Kiddush or Yom. So, and it's interesting also that here also he has a kasha and a teretz. Shulchan Aruch seems to be a little bit yotzei midarko in this simon. So he had Shulchan Aruch. Tanya kavod Yom kavod Laila. We say that if there's kavod Yom kavod Laila, the Gemara says the kavod Yom adif. Again, interesting for the Shulchan Aruch to ask a kasha and say teretzim like this. But he seems like he's holding in the sugya, like he's teaching us the sugya, not just the halacha. It says, "Hainu dafka b'shar tzachei asuda." That's only for other needs, to have other things to eat. The klal of kavod yom arif and kavod laila doesn't apply when we're just talking about the ikar mitzvah of kiddush, which is deraisa. The ikar mitzvah is kiddush deraisa. Okay, we're not going to really go much more into that. It's pretty self-explanatory. We'll keep on going here. And Sif Daled, also litam klum kodem shikadesh afilu mayim. Can't taste anything, even mayim. So I think why does it say afilu mayim? I think he's coming. The Mishnah speaks about whether you can wash your mouth. You can wash your mouth with water, rinse your mouth with water. That's okay. That's not considered mayim. I don't want it to be balea. But why is that afilu mayim? I think he's coming lafuke havdalah, that by havdalah, when it's Bizman Havdalah, once it's Shabbos, before Havdalah, the Shulchan Aruch Paskins, you're allowed to drink water. You're allowed to just yayin or even tea, hot tea that it's not sweetened, or hot coffee not sweetened. You're allowed to drink that before Havdalah. It's not considered a chashuv. So by Havdalah, it's tali in chashivas, but by Kiddush, it's tali in the fact that it's this Kaddish Yom. Everything, within the sugya of that Shabbos is kovas. For everything, it's kovas, the din of Oneg Shabbos, that everything you drink or even water is nichlal and Oneg Shabbos, and you can't drink that without Kiddush. Then he goes on to say, even if you started before, Sarach lahafsik sheporos mapa mekadosh, we learned the sugya that we paskin, that not like Rabbi Yossi, but like Shmuel, that you have a chiyuv of poros mapa mekadosh. And if you remember, it was a machlokas. The Rashbam held that really Shmuel is just a chumrah in Rabbi Yossi. It's from Ikar din is like Rabbi Yossi. You're allowed to keep on eating. And Shmuel was adding this din. It's just a tosefes chumrah. But Ikar din, you're allowed to keep eating. But Rav Rishonim, Tosfos and Rav Rishonim learned that it's a machlokas. And Shmuel holds not like Rabbi Yossi, but like a cherem, that it's taka asar to continue eating. Even though you're in the middle of a suda, you're not allowed to continue eating, and you're chayav to stop, make kiddush, and then continue afterwards. And in Rabbi Yossi Gufa, we saw Tosfos that said that according to Rabbi Yossi, you can keep your mamshech v'ochel, you can continue eating, and then you bench, and then you make kiddush afterwards. It's considered kiddush makom suda. Tosfos said because you're kiddush at the makom that you ate, and which that's probably the nekudas machlokas, that according to Shmuel, you're not yotze kiddush makom suda making the kiddush after the meal. Rather, you have to, kiddush makom suda means you need kiddush before at least part of the meal. You have to have a chelik of the suda to be kiddush makom suda. After the kiddush, you have to be koveya the suda on the yain. So, which really the nekudas machlokas we said there is the din kiddush makom suda. First, we spoke about it as that it's in the makom, as long as your yotze, as long as it's in the same makom. How could that be though? If you need the suda to be nikva al yain, how could that be? But really, the machlokas, according to Tosfos and the Rishonim, between Rabbi Yossi and Shmuel, is whether kiddush makom suda is a din in the kiddush or it's a din in the suda. If it's a din in the kiddush, and just the kiddush, then it could be a din in the makom. As long as the kiddush is the makom suda, it's enough, even though it's afterwards. But if it's a din in the suda to be kaver, the suda with chashivas of the suda, l'chavod Shabbos, it needs kiddush. So then it's pasha that you need for the kiddush to be before the suda, for the suda to be nikva. You can't say the mafreya. You drink the kiddush after the suda. The mafreya was nikva al yain. That doesn't work. Can't be. Must be. So that's why Shmuel holds, and that's how we paskin. That it's usher to keep eating. You have to stop and be pours map and mukadish. Just to tie it back to the sugya. So. If you already were eating and you're drinking wine before, and then it comes in, your porous mape. So when you make kiddush, so the Shulchan Aruch is paskening the Yerushalmi that the Torah brings down on the basis of this, the Yerushalmi that it's that the kiddush, the fact that you have to stop and make kiddush is not a hefsek in the shtias yain, because kiddush begins with yain, begins with Brei Gafen. The fact that the Brei Gafen is going to be before the kiddush, you see that the kiddush is not considered a hefsek for birchas hayayin, because we don't have to make a new bracha on the wine after the kiddush again whenever you make kaddish al yayin. So we see that the kiddush is not a hefsek for yayin, and who had been the yayin that you drink during the suda, it's also not a hefsek, so you don't have to make a new Brei Gafen when you make kiddush. Hamotzi you do have to make. It is a hefsek in hamotzi, because we say that lemishti, you can't make kiddush and eat at the same time. It's efshar and it's a chiyuv, like we saw in the Gemara in Chulin. So therefore, it's considered hesach hadas for the hamotzi, and you're chayav now to make a new hamotzi. But mashenken, that's only if you make kiddush on yain. But if you make kiddush on pas, you tend to make the kiddush on the pas, then you do not need a new hamotzi, because then the same sfor was said by yain is going to apply by the pas, and it would not be a hefsek, or you could say it that to make a new bracha would be pasnish. I didn't really say that. Some say that even with kaddish al yain, also it's not considered hefsek, but we don't pass them that way. Okay. Yes.
I have a hard time understanding this svara of why it is a hefsek or it's not a hefsek. Like I was still struggling with it.
I remember we discussed that in the sugya. That was
yeah,
and in your text. Yeah.
And in my text, but I'm still. I don't know. It's not going in. The point is that it's not the isser of te'ima that makes the hefsek. It's the actual kiddush that will make the hefsek.
Right, but you see, because since it was nikva al yain, there's a svara to say that it's considered like one svara we saw in the Rishonim was that once they were sakin at al yain, then it's considered like a chara bracha richtadami. It's a bracha ruka in a way that the kiddush, because the fact that you see that you make every kiddush, every regular kiddush Friday night, you make Brei Gafen, then you say the kiddush, and when you drink the wine, you don't make a new bracha on the wine. You see that the kiddush was not a hefsek to the Brei Gafen. So since Chazal instituted it that way, and that's the way you do it, then that's you can say a few swords. Either you could say that it's a bracha ruka, or you could say that it's like gaval atari. It's like if you have to say other things. You're not allowed to eat if you didn't feed the animals, or you say bring the salt, whatever things that have the shack for the suda. You're allowed to say even after you made a motzi, it's not considered a hefsek because it's the tzarech hamotzi. You need to feed the animals. You can say gaval atari. Oi, baruch atah Hashem l'chamoed moitzalach min aretz. Oh, I didn't feed the animals. Go gaval atari and feed the animals, and then you eat the bread. It was not a hefsek because it was necessary. There's a matir for you to eat that food, is to feed the animals first. Also over here, you can't drink this wine or you can't eat the Suda until you make Kiddush. So it's not considered hefsek for the wine, even if you don't say, go as far as saying it's one long bracha, but it's necessary for drinking the wine to make Kiddush, so it's not a hefsek to the Brit Gafen. And now for Hamotzi, that's a different story. Like that's the shaila whether it's a hefsek for the Hamotzi or not. That's you could use the same Sforah and then declare back and forth whether, and that's the two shitas in the Shulchan Aruch, whether it's hefsek for Hamotzi. But the Kuli Alma, if you're Makadosh on Pas, then it's for sure not a hefsek because from the same.
Would that be the difference? What Rabbi spoke out before about whether the Kiddush Mokum Suda, if that's part of the, if that's I don't remember the words, but could that be part of that machlokas? Like if you say that Kiddush Mokum Suda you need to have the Suda, then maybe the pas is not. It's not a hefsek for the pas either because
right. So I think that's around those fours are the 2 days in Shulchan Aruch, whether it's hefsek for Hamotzi also or not. That's part of the discussion over here. I just want to point. So this we already spoke about at length in the sugya. I just want to point out a sort of a side point over here, but I think it's important that the fact that just the basic din of the Yerushalmi, very important. The basic din of the Yerushalmi, which is that if you already made a Beit B'er Gafen and it's not a hefsek, therefore you make Kiddush now, holding the Kosel Yayin, and you don't make a new Beit B'er Gafen. So why not? Beit B'er goes part of Kiddush. So because you already Yotzei the Beit B'er Gafen before. Says Rav Moshe in the Tshuva, it's in Chelek Gimel. If you want to know specifically, it's in Chelek Gimel Siman Mem Hey. Want to look it up inside? It's a short Tshuva. Rav Moshe is dealing with the shaila over there with somebody accidentally made shahakol instead of Beit B'er Gafen on the wine. So is that makev? Is that a problem? So Rav Moshe says that from our sugya, from this Yerushalmi, you see that the ikar din of Beit B'er Gafen is really birchas hanenin. It's for the sake of, because you can't drink without Beit B'er Gafen. Haraya, here you already are yotzei the Beit B'er Gafen. You don't need a new Beit B'er Gafen mitzad the Kiddush. So you see that Beit B'er Gafen is not really be'etzem part of the Kiddush. It's not a chelik of Kiddush be'etzem. Rather, it's just it's a din birchas hanenin that you need to drink the wine. And since the Kiddush has to be al yayin, and to be al yayin, you have to drink the wine. You can't drink it without a Beit B'er Gafen, so that birchas hanenin becomes part of Kiddush mitzad that you need it to drink the wine, but it's not really. It's really remains birchas hanenin. So if you already yotzei the birchas hanenin all day, you already were drinking, you were eating the Suda from before, and you already have that birchas hanenin. So you're yotzei, and you don't have to make a new Beit B'er Gafen. Who adin you made shakol since mitzad birchas hanenin. We know that anything you make shakal on, b'diavad your yotzei. So if you made shakal on your Kiddush by accident, then you don't have to go back. You're fine. You're yotzei. You're allowed to drink this wine, so you're okay. He wants to say even a step further that even if somebody if they forgot to make a Beit B'er Gafen at all, you just said the rest of the Kiddush you started drinking, then so you can make a Beit B'er Gafen afterwards. You want to continue drinking, you need to, but it's not ma'akev in the Kiddush because really it's just a birchas hanenin. It's not really it's not part and parcel with the Kiddush. It's not part of the nusach of Kiddush. And he says, therefore, also, let's say somebody walked in a minute late. You have a guest coming. You're waiting. It happens all the time. Okay, I guess they're not coming. And you start making Kiddush, Beit B'er Gafen. Then the door opens. They walk in. You say, and then you say the rest of Kiddush. They never heard the Beit B'er Gafen. So are they yotzei or not? Says Rav Moshe, since the Beit B'er Gafen is only birchas hanenin, but they heard the ikar Kiddush, and the Kiddush was al hayayin, then they're yotzei that Kiddush al hayayin, even though they didn't hear Beit B'er Gafen. Now, if they want to drink, if you hand them out the cups, then that person will need to make a Beit B'er Gafen to drink it. But they're yotzei even without the Beit B'er Gafen. Tremendous good. That's Rav Moshe. We see from this sugya. So I had a big problem with that we learned, if you remember. Previously, we saw the sugya in Rosh Hashanah about the din of arvus, and that arvus, it could be motzi somebody birchas mitzvahs, but not birchas hanenin. If I let's say already made a motzi or whatever, and then somebody walks in and they don't know how to make a motzi, I'm in the middle of my suda, I can't make another motzi for them. However, if I go to Mim Kaddish for somebody, I'm already going to say Kiddush, and then I find out, the lady next door needs someone to make Kiddush for them. So I'm allowed to go next door and make the whole kiddush Beit Piragafen and the whole kiddush for her, even though I'm not drinking or anything, and I'm already Yotzei Beit Piragafen. Or someone else walks in the house and didn't hear kiddush yet. I can make kiddush for them, even though I'm sitting in the middle of my suda. I can say the whole thing for them. So you see that I can be motzi Beit Piragafen. So you see clearly it's not considered birkas hanenin. It's considered birkas mitzvahs. It's a chelik birkas mitzvahs. If it's birkas mitzvahs, it must be part of the kiddush, part and parcel of the kiddush. Then how could Rav Moshe say that it's yotzei without it? The kiddush yotzei without it. What is it? Is it birkas hanenin? Is it birkas mitzvahs? Which one is it? But I was thinking though, if you look carefully at that Gemara and the Rashi over there in Rosh Hashanah, that Arvus tells you can be motzi somebody else in their chiyuvim, as long as it's a real chiyuv and it's not a reshus, but it's a real chiyuv. So this, if you look carefully at Rashi, like I think we spoke about it then, it's not shot in the Gemara over there that I can be motzi als Arvus, that it's to tell me that's not birkas hanenin. But since it's a chova lakiddush, since I need the Beit Piragafen for kiddush, because I need kiddush al yain and I can't, it's not considered kiddush al yain unless I can drink that wine. So it comes out that birkas of Beit Piragafen is no longer in the getter of a reshus that I can either drink or not drink. Like we said over there, stam birkas hanenin, I can't be able to them even though they have a chiyuv if they want to eat, because they could also decide not to eat. It's not, they're not chayav to eat with whatever they want to eat. So therefore, I'm not mechuyev within arvus to be motzi them that birkas hanenin. Mashenkin, if there would be a type of birkas hanenin that they are mechuyev to make, the Torah is mechayev them to make that. So that even though it's still birkas hanenin, but it's no longer birkas reshus. So mitzad arvus, I become obligated to make sure that they can make their birkas hanenin as well. So in this case, you have a birkas hanenin which is obligatory, and therefore I can be motzi the mitzad arvus. So you don't see necessarily from the sugi over there that it's birkas mitzvahs, but it has the aspect of birkas mitzvahs that it's a chiyuv to make it. It's not just a reshus. No, it's up to them. Therefore, I can be motzi the mitzad arvus. Rav Moshe asks other kashas, but I think this probably will answer his kashas as well. Okay, going a little further. Sif Hey. Shnaim shayu shosim v'amru bo v'nekadesh kiddush hayom nesar lehem lishtos ad shikachu. Once they say let's make kiddush, then it's Friday afternoon. Then they can't drink anymore till they make kiddush. But if they want to go back and drink more without making kiddush, even though they're not allowed to, they have to make another Beit Piragafen, because by saying let's do kaddish, then that's hesach hadas. And the Ramah says that a person forgot adam sheshachach l'kaddish ad l'achar shabir perek samotzi. You made a motzi, then you forgot to make kiddush, so you realize you didn't make kiddush. Niskar kodem she'achal. You remember before you ate, you kaddish al pas. So you made a motzi, then all of a sudden you realize, it's kiddush, you didn't make kiddush. So continue. You made a motzi, don't stop and make kiddush al yain, but continue where you're holding and make kiddush al pas. You samach on the rishon and you can be kaddish al pas. V'charkak yochal. Abdullah, that doesn't work by Abdullah. You have to eat right away. It shouldn't be a brachal of Atala because you can't be mavdil al pas. That doesn't work. Okay. Now there's an interesting chiddush over here, just like a sort of a side point, but it's important that Mishavura says over here in the name of the Magen Avram that if you made this mistake and you took a piece of bread, you made a motzi, then you realized you didn't make kiddush yet, so go ahead and make kaddish on that pas, and then before you eat, you already said the motzi. Before you eat, bring out the lechem mishnah and eat from the lechem mishnah. As long as you generally had das, you're going to eat that lechem mishnah. Can't be something you didn't have das for. You had das for it, then bring the lechem mishnah before you eat. So the achronim ask on this Magen Avram that what does it help now to bring out lechem mishnah? You already made kiddush and a motzi on this slice of bread you had. You already made the kiddush. You already made that motzi. So what are you doing with lechem mishnah now? It goes as far as the Shulchan Aruch Rav says. You can go as far as saying is you can even talk after the kiddush and the motzi. Tell somebody, oh, go bring me the lechem mishnah from the kitchen, and that would not be considered a hefsek. Ad kadei kach, the Magen Avram holds you bring lechem mishnah now. You already made the motzi. What are you doing by lechem mishnah? So it's probably Shem Rishon Zalman and Shmir Shabbos Kol Chasa. It's in Perak Nun Beis Sifkat and Ayin Hay in the Ha'ara, Shem Shalom Zalman, Lechem Mishnah is lav dafke din in the bracha. It's din in the Haschalas Asuda. Lechem Mishnah, for the reasons we have to have Lechem Mishnah to be Zechel Laman. The man fell and everything like that. All the stores we have with Lechem Mishnah, as long as the Haschalas Asuda is Lechem Mishnah, even though the bracha wasn't necessarily on it, it was on something else, on a prusa, you're still Yotzei Lechem Mishnah as long as you began the Suda with it. So therefore, since you're still Yotzei the din Lechem Mishnah through that, then you can even tell somebody bring it, because it's Shlomo said it's a kosherkin for all the other dinim of, feed the animals or bring the salt. Those are side things, and this is the etzem suda itself. The etzem ikar din suda is to eat lechem mishnah. So therefore, the kosherkin you could tell them to bring it if the lechem mishnah is not on the table.
Would it be better to do the kiddush then on the lechem mishnah?
Oh yeah, I guess for whatever the circumstances where you weren't able to. I guess the fact that you're holding it, you already made a motzi, so not to be mafsik to the motzi right now, to the motzi and the kiddush to make those one. So you have like maybe that would be a hafsek between the hamotzi and the kiddush, is that you're being kaddish on the pas right now. So maybe that would be a problem to start being mafsik now and bring lechem mishnah in. Maybe you're breaking up the kiddush in half. But
if I don't have
for the ikra din of the motzi itself, that's not considered as das because it's a parcel with the suda to have lechem mishnah.
So if I don't have yayin and I need to be mikadeh shalapas, it's better for me to use a piece of bread or to use and then bring lechem mishnah after, or to bring the lechem mishnah and just do kiddush on the lechem mishnah.
For sure, better to do a kiddush on lechem mishnah. Here he forgot altogether. He just sat down motzi and then it's Shabbos. I had to make kiddush. Like he went nuts. Whatever. He had a bad day at work. I don't know, but he had a rough day. You think that you can't forget these things. They're so much part of us. But last Friday night I was eating by a friend of mine who's a chashuv people in Dallas, and we all sat there and we all came in and said, lift up the coast, and right away started kiddush. And he finished kiddush. I said, you're not knowing to sing Shalom Aleichem? He said, I can't believe it. How did I forget? So we totally forgot Shalom Aleichem. We've got Eishes Chayil. That's already time for his wife. Eishes Chayil. So what do I do? I said, we'll make a motzi and then we'll sing it. You're not going to start being masik now between the kiddush and sing all that stuff. So people actually can forget these things. The bracha and the kids, the whole thing. Maybe I make people nervous when I come to their house. I just want to say about this. I don't know if I said the mics over or not for the Chavetz Chaim. By it's going to say over here afterwards. We'll wait till we get to it. We'll see here. Shulchan Aruch Siv Vav. Moving along here. Shulchan Aruch Siv Vav. So we have this machlokas whether, like we mentioned, we really just spoke this out already, and whether it helps to have kiddush after the suda. Right, in Gamar Sudasa, the Kiddush Ayam Kodim, you already was eating before, and then it became Shabbos. So it says you bench on Kos Rishon, and afterwards you make Kiddush Ayam al Kos Sheni. You have to Mazker Shel Shabbos and Birchas Hamazon, even though you're benching before Kiddush. And the Ramah says no. Some say you don't mention Shabbos because you go by the Tchilas Asuda. So you're not really Yotze Suda Shabbos this way. So V'chen Iker. And then it's a machlokas whether you can be toem for the kos birchas hamazon before you make kiddush. The Ramah says, and then Shulchan Aruch says, Yesh Omrim, even by the Gemara Suda, you don't bench first, but first rather you should pour smapa, the kaddish, and make a motzi and eat at least a little bit to be yotzei. The Ramah says that's a minig, and you for sure should be yotzei kol days that way, because we have a shaila whether or not you can be yotzei Kiddush Malchus Suda after the Suda. Are we somewhat on that sfor we saw by Rabbi Yossi or not? So like we just spoke out a few minutes ago, so then this is the shaila whether Kiddush Malchus Suda is a din in the Kiddush or a din in the Suda. If it's a din in the Kiddush, then it could be Yosei perhaps even afterwards, as long as it's the Malchus Suda, Kiddush Malchus Suda. but because it was still samach to it, so the kiddush was makom suda. But if it's a din in the suda that has to be nikva ala kiddush, then for sure it doesn't help to do it afterwards. You don't do it say lamafreya. It was ala suda. It was the suda was ala yain. So that's why you have to stop. Or if makadosh eats a little more pas, and then you could bench for with Shabbos with Ritzei and you say the kol deis. Okay, that's we spoke out. Okay, and then Sif Zion. Also, Alpish also litam kodem kiddush im ta makadosh im ta makadosh. That we saw machloks in the Gemara. If ta makadosh or ta and makadosh is considered a bizayon for the kiddush. If you ate before and therefore you'd have to go ahead and you're only allowed to make kiddush the next day because it's a kanas on him that you can't say kiddush once you already mavaza the kiddush by eating before when you should have been makadosh or not. We paskin toam makadosh. We don't make such a kanas, and and the Mishnah Berurah just brings down over here that the shiloh of toam makadosh or not is not just by a Lashon is tam. Mashma, you just took a little taste of something. So you might make a mistake and think that when do we paskin tam makadosh? That's if you just tasted a little something. But if you sat and you ate a whole suda, then for sure you are maybe l'kuliami. We are constant in. We do constant. You can't make kiddush till the next day till you start fresh. Which Rua says no, that the kanas once we don't say it at all. So even if you wrongly ate a whole suda without kiddush, still you're able to make kiddush and eat something afterwards and be yotzei. Okay, Sifches we have, it says, Imlo kiddush balayla beim mishogi beim mezid, yishlo tashlumin l'machar kol hayon. Omer kol kiddush shalayla mevad v'yechulu. So this, the Shulchan Aruch paskins beim mishogi beim mezid. The Torah brings down this machlokas the Gaonim and the Rambam. That the Gaonim hold that you can only make up if you were toa, if you mistakenly weren't makadosh. But if you weren't makadosh b'mezid, then just like all other dinim tashlumim, let's say by tefillah, if I b'mezid didn't daven mincha, then I can't do tashlumim for mincha and daven twice marav, or chakras, or same thing for mincha. Tashlumim is only if you didn't do what you're supposed to do b'mezid, then there's a knas that we don't allow tashlum. Tashlum is only if you did a b'shogeg or ba'ones, only then. So the Gaonim say, who did over here? If the mezid wasn't makadosh at night, then I have no right to be makadosh the next day. There's no din tashlum. The Rambam, however, says baby shogeg baby mezid. That's the psak of the Shulchan Aruch. So why minushtana this from all other din tashlum? And the answer is, the answer is pasha, like we spoke about Barichos previous shiurim, that the din of tashlumin of kiddush on the day of Shabbos is not really the din tashlumin. We paskin that the kiddush meikra din is from Friday night all the way to the end of Shabbos. That whole day, that whole yom echad, that's considered not tashlumin. That's considered meikra din. We saw that by Havdalah, the chiluk in Havdalah, that we have a din tashlumin by Havdalah. But we saw that the same thing applies also according to some Rishonim, that the first day of Motzei Shabbos, including all day Sunday, that's not Midin Tashlumin, that's Ikra Din. So if you've been amazed, didn't say Havdalah Motzei Shabbos, you still can be Mavdal the next day. You quit the Havdalah on Monday and Tuesday. That's L'kulam, that's Midin Tashlumin. So if you've been amazed, weren't Makadosh, didn't do Havdalah the first day, then you can't do Tashlumin the rest of the days. But on the first day, which is Sunday, that's not Midin Tashlumin. The whole 24-hour period is all considered Motzei Shabbos. So who did by Kiddush, that's how we're pasking over here, that even though you amazing weren't Makadosh, it's not Midin Tashlumin. That's why the Rambam holds that you can still be Makadosh despite that. Okay.
So why take out Vayechulu?
Pardon?
So why do we take out Vayechulu? I think the Ramah said that we'd say everything except for Vayechulu.
Yeah, because Vayechulu, that's only mamish, b'shas Knisa Shabbos. Even though it's Mikra Din the whole day, but Knisa Shabbos, Vayechulu is the Eidus, that whole thing only applies B'Shas Knesset Shabbos when it's maybe it needs a little more thought. Maybe what why I'm a chalik here. Now the Mishnah Berurah, speak out. Mishnah Berurah brings an interesting thing here that he brings in Sifkat Lamates. He brings from the Pri Megadim that if you didn't make Kiddush all day and now you remember by Banish Mashas on what's the Shabbos, the sun just went down and you're in your middle of Shal Shudas, you started eating Shal Shudas, and middle of Shal Shudas, your son comes over and says, Tati, I noticed that you didn't make Kiddush last night. What? And then you look and you see the coast is still there, you never made Kiddush, you got very wrapped up in your conversation about fixing the world, whatever, and you forgot Kiddush. Now it's Banish Mashas. What do you do? So the Pri Megadim says that Banish Mashas, Shabbos, you should be Mekadesh, but at this point, since it's a suffix, it's Banish Mashas, do it without Shem and Malchus. Say the Kiddush without Shem and Malchus, because the suffix brachos, you can't say Shem and Malchus. It might be a brachal of Atala. Sharat Sion says over here that that's only if you already daven Mariv. So in the middle of Shal Shudas, you daven Mariv, but if you didn't, then you should do it with Shem Malchus, and it must be over. The Bir Lachos says you have to be in the middle of Shal Shudas, otherwise, to make a Kaddish, you have to be Makom Suda, you have to be able to eat afterwards. That's only going to be possible on Motzei Shabbos if you already in the middle of a Suda, in the middle of Shal Shudas. So if you didn't daven Mariv, then you should do it with Shem Malchus. Why? Because if you didn't, because now it's a stake. If you didn't have Mariv, it's a suffix deraisa, whether you make Kiddush or not. In suffix deraisa, then suffix drabanan, we wouldn't make a bracha now. Let's say he says not a stira. Let's say you were not sure, you didn't blow the shofar. You only got a shofar on the first day of Rosh Hashanah after Banish Mashas. So you should blow the shofar without a bracha, or if you shake your lulav came after Banish Mashas, shake the lulav without a bracha, because the bracha is drabanan, and it's a suffix brachas, then you should not make a bracha, just do the mitzvah without a bracha. Mashenkin over here, Kiddush is deraisa, so then you should make the Kiddush with the bracha. The shaila is, I understand Kiddush is deraisa, but why is the bracha deraisa? The Haskaras of Shabbos is deraisa, but not necessarily the bracha itself. You have to say that since Chazal are Misakin, that the way to say Kiddush is in this Madbeah Shel Bracha, and in this Tzura, the way we're Makadosh is that. So they gave the whole Bracha a din of the Kiddush deraisa. I think it's similar to what we find in Tosfos. We only have a day left of Sfiras Omer. Last chance to talk about it. Tosfos in Menacha says, Tosfos Shita holds is that since the Gemara passes like a Meimar, that Sfira Bizman is Drabanan, that's the Psak of Tosfos. Sfira is Drabanan. Since it's Drabanan, therefore you could count at Banish Mashas, Safak Hashecha, you could count already. That's what we do in a lot of shuls. They daven early, they still count Sfiras Omer, even though it's not Badai Hashecha, it's not Laila. The Bir Lacha says Kadai Machmar, like the Rambam and others, that it's deraisa and wait to count till later on at night. Or even if you do count in shul, then count again later on at night. To be say the Rambam that it's deraisa, and it has to be after Laila, Badai Laila. But Tosfos holds that it's Rabbanan, so he says you can count and make a bracha, and you can make a bracha also Safak HaShecha. So obvious kasha is, I understand you can count, maybe you can count Safak Rabbanan L'Kula, but why make a bracha? Safak deraisa, that's the Safak deraisa. If you bracha L'Vatala is deraisa according to the Rambam, then that, so Safak you shouldn't make a bracha, just count without a bracha. Why does it say make a bracha? So we have a richos about that. I've spoken for many years ago. I have a rayas to say that according to Tosfos and some other Rishonim, the Sfiras Omer, if you hold this to Rabbanan, shot is that the bracha is not a bracha like a brichas mitzvahs on the mitzvah, but they misakin to say Sfira with a matbeah shel bracha. That's the shleimus of Sfiras Omer b'Rabbanan. Since it's such a short little thing, just hayom kach v'kach, that's all mitzvah. So in order to make it bona fide, to strengthen the mitzvah, they said to make Sfira, to count Sfira with the matbeah shel bracha. And since now the Sfira, the bracha is a chelik of the Sfira, once you can count Banish Mashas, you can also make that bracha because it's a chelik of the Sfira. So who then over here, So since Chazar Masaka to say Kiddush in the Matbeya Shal Bracha, the Birchas of Kiddush, the Mela Suffolk Ben Ishmasha, since the Kiddush itself is the Raisa, it's Nigra after it to be able to say it's Bracha, to say it the proper way that the Rabbanan were Masakin. So that would be the Sharatzim. Right?
So they're turning it into like a mitzvah that is a bracha, like benching your tefillah.
Correct. That's what I want to say. Okay. Try to finish off. It's getting late, but try to go this quickly a little further. Try to finish off in Siftes, Sar Shetia, Mapal Shulchan, Tachas Apas, Apacheres Prusa Al Gabov. So we have Kamatainim over here. Why it's covered of the past. It shouldn't be busha to the past. You could be makash on past, and instead you're using the Brei Piragafen, using ayin instead. Usually past is always kod in Brei Piragafen, and here you put in that force. It shouldn't be busha to the lechem. I think I might have spoken out once. The Mike of the Chavetz Chaim, he was eating by somebody for Shabbos, and this person's balabas is so excited to have the gadol door by him, and his wife worked so hard to get everything ready and mamish, everything proper, and then she was so exhausted by the time they went to shul that she fell asleep on the couch. And when they came in, so she got everything mamish ready, but she forgot to put the covering over the pas on the table. So the bus came in, and with the Chavetz Chaim, and he's all excited, and he sees that the pas is there, not covered. He was so embarrassed. He said to his wife, "Where's the covering for the pas? Where's the covering for the challah?" So she got it, but she was so embarrassed, and she ran over and she got it. And she was so embarrassed in front of the Chavetz Chaim like that. So the Chavetz Chaim called the guy over and he said, "Why do we cover the pas? Why do we cover the challah? We say there shouldn't be busha to the pas, to the challah, that you're mekadosh al yain." Did you ever see challah get embarrassed? Did you ever see challah turn red, embarrassed? So what's the point? So the Chavetz Chaim, obviously, it's supposed to learn from a Kabbalah Chomer that if I can't even embarrass pas Kabbalah Chomer, I can't embarrass another person. So how could you embarrass your wife for not covering the pas? That was Chavetz Chaim saying, don't miss the forest for the trees. Let's keep everything in perspective. Sif Yud. So we have a lot of different minhagim about standing and sitting. We'll just talk just briefly. Shiur brings down from the Gra why there's a mile of yeshiva b'shas kiddush. So one is because it's considered more kiddush from Makom Suda if you're sitting. It's the shas kiddush, so it's like all a chelik of the Suda. And also to be motzi acherim, there's another adifos than it's be yeshiva. So that's the minig lita to be motzi. So the minig lita is to stand for vayechulu because that's within edus. So that's bamida, and then sit for the rest of kiddush inside being motzi and also kiddush from Suda. We know there's minhagim mishonim with that. It's brought down with the Reb Chaim Brisker and the Chazon Ish and the Brisker Rav all sat through the whole thing. They sat also vayechulu because they held that since they already said vayechulu mitzad edus and shul, then you don't need to stand for edus again. So the whole thing is b'yeshiva. That was their minhag. I guess they must hold that there's no din edus by the women, no chiyuv edus, because the women didn't daven in shul, didn't say vayechulu yet. The Chasidim and the Sfardim stand the whole time, and that's brought down al pi sod. There's as far as al pi Kabbalah to stand the whole time. The Yekis sit down like the Ramah says the whole time. Also, maybe they stand for the first four words. What is it? Yom HaShishi Vayechulu Hashamayim. That's Yudke Vavke. They stand for those four words, and they sit the rest of it. So we have a minhag and everybody will keep with their minhag.
One of my Rebbeim, Ramosha Chet Zichron Al-Bracha, used to say Vayechulu Hashamayim the whole time and then sit down.
This is probably based on that. Based on that, I'll be maybe it was mostly a little bit, but it's standing for that.
I don't know if it was because of the Kabbalistic thing.
No, there's Kabbalistic to stand the whole time. There's another sword, not Kabbalistic, just to stand for the Yudke Vavke. Which it's to stand just for Yom Hashishi Vaychulu Hashemayim, which is Yud Kei Vav Kei, and then sit after that.
Right.
Chavod Hashem. It's not. That's not the Kabbalistic reason. That's another.
Okay.
Okay. And also it says in Shulchan Aruch over here you have to have a kos chashiv that's roy for Birchas Hamazon as din kosher bracha. So just quickly mention that there's a machlokes for Moshe in Gimel Lamed Tes. He says that to use a paper cup is possible for kiddush. It's not roy for kosher bracha. It's mabakats and you throw away. It's not kosher enough to use it. He says if you have nothing else to use, then maybe it'd be better to make kiddush than not. But it's mamish b'shas tzchak gadol. But otherwise, he really holds it's really should not be used at all. It's brought from Shlomo Zalman and Shmir Shabbos. It seems sort of like Ramosha, maybe a little more mekel. It's in Mem Zayin Ois Nun Aleph in Shmir Shabbos B'chasa. If you want to see that, he says that his lashon is ein lahakpid b'yoser im ein lo kos acheres. If you don't have another cup, ein lahakpid b'yoser. In other words, it sounds a little bit lighter than Ramosha, but also it's only b'makush ein lo kos acheres. You should try to go out of your way if you're at a Suda, whatever, that you have plastic cups on the table, paper cups, then go out of your way to try to find a real kos. According to Moshe, it's really a chiyuv, and from Zalman, it's for sure better not to use a paper cup than have the chashivas of a kos.
Where's the practice of doubling? Like if you have to use a plastic cup, you should use 2 cups.
I've seen that many times.
That's not a real thing.
I don't know where it comes. I mean, if it's 2, you're not going to throw it away. I don't know. Maybe you're making a hecker that it's more that you realize it's not so kosher. So you're making, you're trying to make it more kosher a little bit. I'm not sure. There's certainly no marker for it in anything I've seen, in anything written. Okay, we have this whole arichos in Sifyat Aleph. We're not going to go through the whole thing inside. We don't have time for it, but that one thing comes out here between the Shulchan Aruch and the Magen Avraham is that. What you should do to pour out when you pour out into the other cups. I see many people making a mistake with that. I see people sometimes pour to another cup and they pour a little bit and then they drink the other cup. It's for sure better to be drinking from the Magen Avraham, when the Mishnah brings down over here in an Aleph. You should certainly drink from the kosher bracha itself. So you're going to be pouring out for other people, pour out to another cup, and then you yourself drink from the cup, but make sure there's still a revis left in your cup, because the Magen Avraham says here clearly in the that he brings down is that not only is the kiddush supposed to be al revis, but also the shtia should be from a kos that has a revis in it to be considered a shtia from a kosher bracha. So the bracha, the kos itself, you made a bracha on. When you pour out, make sure there's still a revis in it. Use a little bigger of a kos if you're going to do that, and then you can pour out from everybody else from the other kos or fill it up with something else. Is there
any problem of a hefsek to pour before drinking?
I don't think so, because it's all Indian, because you're combining everybody else. It's part of the of the Suda for everybody. It's a chelik of what you're doing. So I don't think so.
Even it's like from like a derech eretz thing, it's really for manners. You're not really pouring.
There's a din lechatchila that everybody should drink.
I'm saying, but I could pass them the cup that I drank from, and everybody could drink from the same cup. But just because some people are gross from that.
The post can actually say that it's not considered derech eretz for everybody else to drink the same cup. Your wife, Yab, and everybody else is considered a davar mos. So the chatchila, one should not have them all drink from the same cup. For Karen, it's not just derech eretz. It's considered like a davar mos. So it takes away from nobody else wants to drink from your cup. And yeah, and also I've seen many times you see people often, they're not so knowledgeable. They'll just take a little sip, and that's it. And very possibly they're not going to say it all that way, because you have to drink a mala lugmov. The minimum, Tosa says, is possible over here in Shulchan Aruch, the minimum te'ima means mala lugmov, which is rov revis. It's not really that much. If you take the minimum shear of ikra din, I heard the same words from Yosef and Rishon Zalman. That's all. They both told me the same words, that they said that let's say the Shiur Chazanish, people are machmir on, that's only a chumrah, but they both said the same words. The ikra Shiur, this is Chabon Klal Yisrael, is the Shiur of Reb Chaim Noah, the small Shiur. So for sure, Yotze Mother Lugmav to drink Rov Revis Arucham. No, it's not really that much. But sometimes you'll see some people just take a little sip, and that's it. They're not Yotze Kiddush that way because they didn't drink. They didn't drink the minimum Shiur Te'ima, which is a Mother Lugmav. Maybe you could say it could be Mohammed Schus that if they give their wife to drink also between the two of them, or they pour it to other people on the table, so that we do have the Shita and the Shulchan Aruch that everybody's shtia has been starved to Mother Lugmav. So it's better than Machmer not to do that, but there is a Shita like that. So if you want to be Mohammed Schus, if everyone together drinks a Mother Lugmav, then there is a makom to say that you don't say that way. But it's for sure better that the Balabas himself should drink Mother Lugmav, not to give it to others before he drinks Mother Lugmav. Okay. There's a little bit more to talk about here, but I think it's already a little too late. So next time we want to. We're behind. I'm behind schedule, so I'm putting everybody else behind schedule because I was away. But next time we'll have. I'm not sure if I'm going to give Shiur on Reish Ayin Beis. I think it's kind of just suit with Mishnah Berurah. But Reish Ayin Gimel for sure, yes, because that's sugyas that we just discussed. I just want to see. We want to see Reish Ayin Beis because the shleimus of all Hillchos Kiddush. We should at least see it. See the Mishnah Berurah of that. I'm not sure if I'm going to speak about it. Maybe a point here or there. And we'll go from there to mainly to Reish Ayin Gimel. I'll just throw out to everybody a Shmaka Shaila before we sign off Erev Shuas, that we know that there's a halacha of throughout, we find this throughout Shas. Gerushin is Gayer Katan Shanola Dami. A Ger, this is Gayer, he's considered like a Katan, like he was just born. And that's why the Ikra Din Midaraisa, there's no Isra Arayas to a Ger. Even he could Midaraisa, he could even marry his mother or marry his sister. And we don't do that because Midrabanan, because we say Shalayom Rabbanan Kedusha Chamur La Kedusha Kala. If a Ger is Muskayer, the Goyim are not knowing to marry their mothers and their sisters, unless you live in Kentucky, maybe in back hills, Kentucky. But even there, not your mother, just your sister, I think. But they shouldn't say. So that's Midrabanan. We don't do that. But other Abayas, yes, other Abayas, aunts and so on and so forth. All the other Abayas besides mother and sister, we do allow Ger to marry because Katan Shanola. So there's a shaila, if all of Klai Yisrael are Magayer at Har Sinai, technically nobody was Jewish till Har Sinai, and they did a Maisa Gerus over there in Har Sinai. They did Mila, Tfila, Hartzas Korban, Nara Ben Yisrael, Shalachas Yadam, and they did the Zrikas Dam, which was Dam, Rosh's Dam on Mizbeach, which was they did Korban, they brought Korban Gerus over there. If you have the Brisk Rav and Chumash, take a look at parts of Mishpatim. That he speaks about this by Rikus over there, that they did the Maisa Kabbalas of Bris, which is the Gerus of Klai Yisrael, Har Sinai. So do you say that they all were Katan Shanola Dami? Katan Shanola Dami. Or if so, then why were they Am Bochin Mishpachasein in Parshas Baloscha? So they're all crying over the Mishpachas. And Rashi says, because a lot of them had to divorce their wives because they're Arayas to them. If they were Katan Shanola Dami, why were they Arayas? There's no Drabanans yet at Har Sinai. So why were they Bochim on Mishpachasein? So the Maral says that from there we see that there was no Katan Shanola Dami by Har Sinai. There's no Katan Shanola Dami. The question is why? If they're Magayer, then why not Katan Shanola Dami? So I brought in the new Sefer that I heard once from Moshe Shapira. There's a whole big discussion of where do we know Katan Shanola Dami from? It says it all over Shas. Chassam Sofer, Shrayas, Kavakayim, it says it all over Shas, but it never brings a makar for that. It's like we just know that. How do we know that from? So there's a whole discussion among many posts who try to give different Rabbanim and the Meshach Chachma and others try to bring makaros for Katan Shanola Dami. I heard from my Rebbe Moshe Shapira. He said he wanted to say it's a Deborah Pashat. I didn't know Katan Shanola Dami because since Avram Avinu is called Av Among Goyim, Avram Avinu is called his Av Among Goyim. It means that he's the Av the Gerim. Every Ger we say Ben Avram Avinu. We have to write that in the Ksuva as possible. or in the get, it's possible if you don't say Ben Avram Avinu, you can't say Avram Avram. He became his father. So the fact that he went from Uma Acheres to a different Am, and he had a father, and now he goes into Klal Yisrael and he takes a new father. Having a new father shows he's like a Katan Shenolad, and this Katan Shenolad, his father is Avram Avinu. That applies only when someone came from Uma Acheres. But somebody who came from already being Ben Avram Avinu, Klal Yisrael, even though they weren't technically Jewish till they were Gair, but either was Avram Avinu himself. They were all Bnei Avram Avinu already. So on Klal Yisrael, the Makabel Torah, they already were Bnei Avram Avinu. On them, you can't say Katan Shenolad Dami because they're not switching from Uma Acheres and taking a new Av. Avram Avinu already was their Av, and that would explain why they're not Katan Shenolad Dami.
That's not. It answers why. Oh, that was the question. Why Klal Yisrael is different? Doesn't answer what the Makor is, though.
No, that's the Makor.
Like, where do we see it from?
I say that's the Makor. The fact that Avram Avinu is called Av, Hashem told him, "You're Av among Goyim. You're going to be the Av of the Gerim." That's the Makor in the Torah that the Gerim need a new Av. And Av Michal told us, if your father means you have to told us. All those told us are going to be all the Gerim that are Megayer, that they become the told us of Avram Avinu. So that's Megala that they're all considered Kanjanol Dami.
So Bnei Yishmael would have that din also, or they would have to.
No, the Gemara in Nedarim says it says it says what's the Bnei Yishmael is it says Ki B'Yitzchak Yekral Chazara. The Torah was Mamayat Yishmael from Zerah Avram. If that's in the Mishnah says in Nedarim, if you make a netter that I'm not going to be netter from Nichsei Avram Vazarav, then you're Asar B'Nichsei Yitzchak and you're Mutar B'Nichsei Yishmael, because it's not considered called. It brings that pasuk over there that is Mayat from being Zerah Avram. He was pushed out. It's not considered Zerah Avram.
So they would have the Isser.
So there'd be no Isser on of the netter on them on Nichsei Yishmael on Nichsei Yitzchak. Be noted from Nichsei Avram and Zaro.
Right. Okay. I'm saying they would be able to marry their aunts and their cousins and whatever. They wouldn't have a din of being Ben Avraham when they do a gerus.
Correct. Yeah, an Arab that's Bnei Yishmael, that's a Megayer, then he could one of his 30 wives could be his sister. Make her maybe drives. Okay. Well, the Yom Tov is also all be Zochar to Kabbalah Torah for ourselves and our families and all of our Talmidim.
Amen. Mazel tov on the Sefer, Rabbi.
Thank you. It's
Is it on Amazon yet?
It's going to be on Amazonowitch, I think, but that's it. It's I spoke to the warehouse yesterday. They said it should have arrived by now, but it didn't arrive yet in Liquid. They think the shipment's a little bit late, but it should be there soon. Then that'll be start getting out to the bookstores and everything. It's in Eretz Yisrael. It is already, but it's on the way. Okay, good job. Shabbos, good job.
Shabbos, good job.